May I ask, is it okay if we invite someone else to join the group at this point?
Anytime, yeah.
Anytime, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, somebody who has some connection with the spirituality and so on. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Kyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Tati Guru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om. So we are going into the 5th verse. Now, on the 6th. So the previous verse, we remember, right? We are trying to keep the overview, the entire picture. So it begins, the Vivekachudamani begins with a salutation and a nice declaration of I say, of invocation and gratitude to our Sampradaya, with Ishwara in the beginning, Shankara in the middle, and our teachers, our current teachers in the end. So, and then we go through the topic of the privilege of being a human being, which is not accidental altogether. It appears to be accidental, but it is a byproduct of our good karma. So it's due to our good karma. We were born in a human body with a health, body, mind, piece of equipment, with a spiritual vasana, and with the merit to be introduced to the pure knowledge, the scriptural knowledge revealed direct to Ishwara, which is it's one of those rare privilege, human body with a spiritual vasana, the privilege of being in contact with the scriptures on self-knowledge, the original scriptures on self-knowledge. So, and then that brought us into the topic of karmic. As we know, life is just a process of evolution or growth or development, and we go from life to life, which brings us to this process of spiritual elevation or spiritual refinement until we begin contemplating into the very nature of our existence. Very few individuals come to this level of inquiry. Most people, when they begin using their intellectual faculty, they discriminate among the myriads of objects, objects that they like, they don't like, and then the objects of knowledge. We go into all those levels of human pursuits, human values, security, pleasures, and then dharma and all knowledge and so on. But very few individuals come into this last stage in the process of our evolution called the end of the Vedas, represent or demonstrate or illustrate at the end of the Vedas, and then we get in contact with this knowledge, which is the knowledge in respect to our true, free, independent, limitless nature. So we moved on into the following verse, which was the verse that introduced the idea of free will. The free will was introduced in a rather dramatic kind of manner, saying that, if you You have the free will even to opt out and say, hey, I don't want to. Now I know the truth, I got the merits, I got in contact with this scriptural knowledge and so on. And I know already that I am limitless consciousness, but I like to be engaged in the world of objects. I like to keep my attachments and my entanglements and so on. And I will pass. So our free will would go to the extent to allow us to say, hey, I thought I wanted, but I don't want. And then in the verse 3, it brings in this notion about spiritual suicide. And to say, so our free will allows us anything. And then the following verse, Shankara has brought up the initial distinctions between knowledge and experience. So, excuse me. So he brought up this distinction, which is the most fundamental distinction between the karma khandhas, everything that there is there in the Vedas, which prepares the mind. They are based on actions, rituals, and sadhanas, and the end of the Vedas, which is about knowledge, contemplation, understanding, and so on. So the verse number 4, he began explaining that all actions will never lead to moksha, or in Shankara's words, self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, a person who does all kinds of spiritual sadhanas, who practice all kinds of spiritual rituals, propitiating all the gods for various ends, such a person, such a sadhaka will never gain self-knowledge, or in other words, will never gain freedom, because freedom is only possible by the means of knowledge. We covered that on the verse number 4. Verse number 5 has emphasized that even further, saying that we can even do like billions of actions, billions of efforts, sadhanas, trying to produce, trying to gain, trying to connect, trying to become, trying to merge any of those spiritual notions that gives us this indication of action, experience, movement, gaining, and so on. None of these, even billions of those actions will never produce self-knowledge. But it comes back and says, but we are not to say that actions do not have their value. So actions will purify the mind and prepare the mind for self-inquiry and self-knowledge. So this is important. So that brings us to the verse of today. So we all read the self. We know that. So Arjuna, as well in the Gita, when he began his initial Vedanta class with Krishna, the classroom was very unique because it was in the middle of the battlefield, but then Krishna gave him the knowledge. So you are the self, you are free, limitless, nothing will ever touch you, and you cannot touch the self. So don't worry, things are not really what it seems to be, and so on. We know we are the self, and we know that we don't need to do anything except understanding it very clearly, and truly and firmly, doubtless knowledge. And therefore, we are convinced that no action can help us with this self-inquiry. So we are inquirers, we are yanis, we are people who understood the value of knowledge and inquiry. And we know that actions will never do it. But we are so acclimated to action that we need to be reminded again and again that ignorance, the source of our unhappiness, can only be removed by the means of knowledge. So this is something that it seems like that it's too often repeated in this text, among other notions, but it is there for some reason, because these notions, they are so deeply wired, ingrained in our causal body. Yes, but the famous yes, but, I'm sure that I need to do something because I already understood it, but I need to do something now. I mean, where is the practical side of Vedanta? I heard it. Now I need to do something. So you see how the mind goes, I need to do something. So Vedanta is not about theory and practice. Vedanta is about contemplating, reflecting, resolving doubts, and then gradually assimilating this knowledge, digesting this knowledge, interiorizing this knowledge, integrating this knowledge. It just becomes clear and becomes a fact. It becomes a new vision. I live from this platform of Aham Brahmasmi. I am limitless Brahman. Okay? So we need to again and again revisit those notions because unconsciously we think on those terms. Now I have to do something so that I got an answer from our friend Carlos. He's going to show up and we're gonna most probably talk about that, and it's about that. So he said, like, people of Vedanta, they have this knowledge, but the problem is that this knowledge is not really practical. So how can we make it practical? How can we just, because he said, I already understood and I already agree. But we need to be reminded, don't be in a hurry to agree with the statements and declarations of the Upanishads. Why? Because we should not take it so easily. Because ignorance is so deeply ingrained in our unconscious mind that we cannot say, okay, I have been, Gita, I already went through the Gita 3 times, and I know everything about the Gita. Like one of our friends there in Carbondale, when I know all of this, I know all of that already. I was here with Ramji. This is old knowledge for me. I don't need that. So it's one thing is to go through this knowledge. Another thing is to have this knowledge to really clean up our system, our subconscious mind, our unconscious mind, to neutralize our ignorance. Yes, Lynn.
Because when I first came to Vedanta, listening to James, as I look back on it now, I think I was almost taking it as entertainment. Just enjoying the thinking process, enjoying the ideas.
Yeah.
And then it became clear to me that there was work. And that's kind of what I think of in terms of action, because I have to, as James put it, you have to resolve each experience as it comes in.
Yeah.
In the light of the teaching.
Yeah.
So I spent too much time with Vedanta as my entertainment. Takes a transition.
It's a very, very nice way to put it. I haven't heard that before. Just entertainment. It's just a pastime. I heard this pastime. It's just another knowledge. Knowing a little bit of Vedanta, like I know so many other.
It's like enjoying a beautiful painting.
Yeah.
It's a painting in your mind that so resembles the truth that it's very attractive.
Yeah.
So you can just sit there and enjoy.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So it's Vedanta, as we often say, it's not about Vedanta. Vedanta is all about us. The purpose of studying Vedanta is not to become an expert on Vedanta, but it's to get to know who you are, to be an expert about your true nature. Oh, yes, I know. Now I'm an expert. I have no doubts. I'm fully convinced. I'm even convinced in the night when I wake up and in the morning, I don't forget. So it has to be a knowledge that's not forgotten, not forgotten. You know, a knowledge that is always present. And that's where the work comes in, because ignorance is all over the place. You know, it pervades everything. Maya pervades everything. These two energies, Rajas and Tamas, pervades the entire universe and affects the mind of all jivas. So we need to again and again do the work of keeping, you know, our mind sattvic and this knowledge alive in our minds, so that we can resolve those situations of life, you know, as they come in the light of the teachings, like Ramji likes to say, you know. We keep resolving doubts and questions and conflicts and overreactions and circumstance situations. Everything needs to be dealt within the light of the teachings. This is what we could say the practice of Vedanta, which is better described as the application of Vedanta. Life situation is coming up, and again, the knowledge starts really being retained in my mind, so that when the situation comes, I don't need to stop everything and then run to my room and get my Bhagavad Gita or my scripture and then start studying or start listening to my audios and so on. No, the teaching now is really retained. It's really creating roots in my mind, and then it's present, it's available at our disposal, at our, you know. So that's the idea. So if we are unhappy, if we feel dissatisfaction, unhappiness, we better understand it clearly that ignorance is in operation every time we feel bad about ourselves. Every time any small sense of irritation or boredom or anything, you know, we need to have that kind of little beep that says beep, 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 beep. Ignorance is surfacing my mind, you know, and I just have to bring the knowledge back and then neutralize those notions that produce suffering, those self-limiting, self-insulting, self-diminishing kinds of thoughts that we have crowded our minds, our subconscious mind with such thoughts, you know. Being the number one, there is something wrong with you. There is something that, you know, is not all right with you, no? So the verse number six, therefore, approach a compassionate teacher, a knower of the self, and learn how to inquire into the truth. Approach a compassionate teacher, a knower of the self, and learn how to inquire into the truth. So it's very rare. You see, this text, as we said a few times, does not really talk about how to prepare the mind, although it has brought us into a short discussion about free will and karma, but it does not cover the topic of karma yoga as a means to prepare the mind. So it says, approach a compassionate teacher, someone who knows the self as himself, knows his nature as the self, and learn how to inquire into the truth. So we go directly to the self-inquiry, okay? Pure Jnana Yoga. Of course, we need an attitude of humbleness to approach a teacher, because there is nothing more painful to the ego than to say like, okay, I'm approaching a teacher. The ego needs to be a little bit more mature, because any kind of infantile ego is going to overreact about the idea of approaching a teacher with that kind of attitude that Arjuna brought towards the end of the second chapter, when he says, okay, please, I'm really confused. I can't work it on my own. Please teach me. So it's very rare to find an individual that teacher accepts, the fact that without a teaching and without an agent, teacher is just an agent of Ishvara. In the beginning of this text, we were told that the teacher is the self, and then represented by Ishvara, but Ishvara then needs other representatives, and other representatives of people that appears in the role of propagators or exposers of this knowledge, this Vedantic knowledge. But the student, to come to this point, because there are all kinds of students, most of the students, they want a cozy, warm sangha, which offers kind of protection of a spiritual family, understand? And then the guru is a mother figure or the father figure. So most people, they are looking for that kind of relationship with the teacher. But when we come to Vedanta, very soon we understand that this relationship with the Vedanta teacher is only possible if both mature individuals, because the teacher is not there to manipulate, mislead, or take advantage. The teacher should not have any personal agenda and so on. And the student has to understand that the teacher is not going to do anything to the student except try to help him to understand the meaning of these teachings, this verse, these statements. And the student has to understand that he is basically on his own, because only the students, the person, each one of us, only we ourselves, we can remove our own ignorance. So it is a totally different kind of relationship, the relationship student-teacher once we come to Vedanta. The student needs this attitude of humbleness and trust. And then it has to understand, and the sooner, the better, that self-knowledge and emotion is a gradual process. There is no such a thing as instant moksha. Okay, we may get it theoretically, mentally, or intellectually. We can understand it. We may enjoy the idea. We like the compliment. When the scriptures say, "You are limitless, never born, never died." So they are beautiful statements, of elevation about what we are. So we may feel attracted to all of that, but the student has to know that this ignorance requires a lot of dedication, persistence, and patience, humbleness. The student has to be humble, patient, and then only then he's going to be able to approach a competent teacher to learn how to do this self-inquiry. So this self-inquiry is, as it says the verse, and learn how to inquire into the truth. So this inquiry is the inquiry into the very nature of the student, the very nature of the seeker. The seeker is seeking for something, and then the scriptural knowledge is going to say, okay, you are seeking to understand your true nature, and your true nature is not something other than yourself. So there's no question of you and your object of inquiry. You are the inquirer, inquiry, and the object of inquiry, because it's all about you. And you alone can understand this simple, let's say, collapse of duality, of this trinity of the knower, knowing, and object known. So the teacher is there to help the student to do this self-inquiry. And how is to be done this self-inquiry? this self-inquiry has to follow the logic as presented by the scriptures of Vedanta, the scriptures on self-knowledge, on self-inquiry. It's just an inquiry by following the logic as presented by the scriptures. There's nothing mysterious, there is nothing esoteric, there is nothing mystic. Vedanta has nothing, absolutely nothing of mysticism to it. There's nothing. It's just pure, simple, direct, immediate knowledge about one's true nature. So the term self-inquiry has become popularized these days, at least among those who declare themselves seekers of enlightenment. But most spiritual seekers lack valid, comprehensive teaching. And of course, they don't have a valid teacher as well. So they are liable to misunderstand the meaning of the term self-inquiry. So this is a commentary that goes to the notion that we all picked up at a certain point in our journeys, spiritual paths, that self-inquiry is just a question of sit, close my eyes, being silent, meditate a little bit, and then start asking, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? So this statement, it aims to address that misunderstanding. Self-inquiry is sought by many people to begin with the earnest asking of this question, who am I? And that's how I began. I got in contact, sooner or later, I got in contact with Ramana and then Nisargadatta Maharaj. Nisargadatta Maharaj gave me what at the time I considered to be a better hint. Instead of asking, who am I, who am I, who am I? Nisargadatta Maharaj gave me a hint. Hey, hold on to the sense, feeling, thought, I am, I exist, which is the most primordial thought. I exist, So it was a very nice meditation. I mean, unfortunately, it took a little bit too long. I stayed more than 10 years doing that until I understood the futility, but it was not a completely waste because it was somehow doing something to my mind. It was somehow making my mind more fit for self-inquiry as presented by the scriptures, A compassionate teacher, qualified teacher, is someone who knows one's true nature as the self and lives from that platform of knowledge. What it means to live by that platform of knowledge. So this knowledge has to be something that worked for him, transformed him or her in a way that when he talks about it, he talks from first-hand experience. Not that self-knowledge is an experience, but it changed the way the Yanni experienced the world. So a lot of those wild, compulsive, impulsive, violent emotionally reactions and responses and inappropriate also response, all of that starts just diminishing, and the individual becomes more and more aligned with Dharma and more wise because he's integrating, he's digesting, he's internalizing these teachings in a way that these teachings start fructifying as a life lived relatively free from conflict, relatively free from any suffering. Okay, so that's what a valid teacher should be. It should not talk about something, preach about something, and say, "Hey, do what I say, but don't do what I do." That's what it means, It worked for me. It proved to work. It worked for thousands of years. So therefore, I can, with authority, with a certain power, I can say, hey, I recommend it and I can help you to understand these statements and clear some doubts and confusions and contradictions and so on. And it works. It gives a lot of lot of inspiration and encouragement. Yeah?
I was thinking about this compassionate teacher, and it seems to me that the import of that is also that the student must have trust in that compassion, or else can't really
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
him or herself
Yeah.
to the teacher.
Totally.
And there would always be a little bit something hidden or something held back from freedom.
Yeah.
So trust, it speaks to me about the relationship, not just the compassion on the teacher's part, but the work that has to be done to be open to the teacher.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the student has difficulty to open up and to trust. And we say that this trust should not be given too easily either, because there are a lot of people playing in the spiritual world and manipulating and, you know, and abusing of people even, you know. People who somehow have different agenda. They appear as a teacher, but they have also other agendas. They want money, they want love, they want devotion, they want so many things, you know, attention, they want prestige, or you never know. But here and there, we see in our tradition, there are some teachers that are pure in their intents, you know. They have no personal agenda. I mean, it's a work of love, because when we come to Vedanta, the whole idea of being a successful guru and become rich with thousands of disciples, taking care of the guru and buying by the guru Rolls Royce and anything like that, it's over, because when we come to Vedanta, we have to we have to conform to the tradition. So it's a teaching that cannot be commercialized, cannot be sold. The teacher does that because, you know, he feels like compelled or assigned to do that. It's a work of love, and it's somebody sometimes says it's a lot of work. I work, for example, a lot, and I'm not even there in the spiritual map. You know, nobody knows me except in Brazil. I'm a little bit more known, but only a little bit generates already a lot of work. And it's not that Vedanta teacher makes money with it, you know. I mean, it's just a little bit of donation here and there. But it is definitely, it's a work of love, I would say. So a good teacher or a valid teacher is someone who was taught by his guru. So if you have a teacher who was never taught, you have to really look a little bit more carefully. Okay, so it's much more safe when you find a teacher who is a competent teacher and he was taught. Because if you are not taught, chances are that you're going to come up with your own teachings, with your own notions and interpretations of even of scriptures. You're going to have your own interpretation. But when a teacher is someone who was taught within the sampradaya, then and then it's easier, you know. It's easier, it's safer for us to trust. Is someone who was benefited by this scriptural knowledge, who was transformed by this knowledge, someone who has properly digested and internalized this knowledge, so that his life is a clear demonstration, indication, so that his thoughts, words, and deeds are well integrated in his or her personality. So we have to live the life from the standpoint of this integration on the level of our personality as well. Because we cannot just say, I am consciousness, I'm free, I'm unconcerned, and I'm limitless, and so on. And then emotionally, I mean, Swami Paramarthananda likes to put it, and but once One's emotional personality also needs to be benefit, needs to be transformed to a certain extent. So it's so that you can enjoy a life without having one's buttons pushed over and over again and experiencing certain reaction and irritations and often and so on, more or less like that. Someone with a certain familiarity with the teachings and with some knowledge about the teachings and the ability to unfold the teachings. Such a teacher is said to be compassionate. He does not have a personal agenda, as I said. But getting back to the self-inquiry and the who am I? So we can look into it and ask ourselves, to whom is this question to be addressed? Because we are going back there because a lot of people still has certain confusion. They think that self-inquiry is diving very deep into the silent mind, going into very, very profound depths of silence. And then from there, from that huge silence, maybe the answer comes, I remember during those years with Papaji, there was a instruction. You ask in the beginning, and then you keep going deep into the silence, and then you stop asking the question and wait for the answer. There were certain instructions sometimes on those levels, So to whom are we asking this question when we ask, who am I? Of course, it's the jiva, the ego, the seeker, in his mind is asking, who am I? And if he's asking, it means he does not know. So the self is not asking because the self is not an experience knowing entity and it's whole, full, and complete. It would never come to the point of say, oh, I need to know something here because otherwise I don't feel okay, I don't feel complete. So it's the jiva that feels incomplete and wants to know something because he heard that now that he could not find a solution in the physical material world, he heard that in the spiritual world he could get a certain knowledge that resolves this fundamental human problem of incompletion, the sense of incompletion and inadequacy. Okay? So he's going to ask this question, but he does not know the answer. So if he finds an answer, what would be this answer? Just imagine you're going very deep and then you are so frustrated because in that deep silence of samadhi, there is no answer. And then one day you say, I'm going to steer a little bit this silence here because I want to hear an answer to my question. Somebody has to answer this question. And then there is a voice that starts telling you some story. Oh, you were this, you were that, and all very, very highly spiritual notions. So you're going to hear your own story, your own thoughts and notions about what the truth is or how does it feel. In my days, I used to be there and I say, okay, oh my God, it is this silence. Oh, it is this love. Oh, it is this disappearing. It is this. You start trying to say that, oh, I got the answer as an experience. The self is this, and I am this space. I am this state of mind. I am this deep silence. I am this ecstasy. Oh, yes, now I got my answer. I know what I am. I am this bliss. So we ask this question, we don't know the answer, and we're going to end up formulate some answer, and we're going to keep frustrated by those answers because nothing is going to be really satisfying because those experiences, they are fleeting, they are momentary experience, they come and they go. And as we know, an experience is only as good as the story or the interpretation you make of it, So we keep going from reformulating what the truth is according to my spiritual notions. Is this, it's related to this experience, is that, and so on. No, it's not about that. It's not like going within as sought the self has a location, in my mind, in my esoteric kind of mind. No, the self has a location, and there is something other than the self. It conceives the meditation of the self as a form of internal diving. Yeah? Vedanta, yeah? Going back to Vedanta, Vedanta is a means of knowledge. It's a means of knowledge, it's a teaching methodology entirely based on our unexamined experience of life. Ordinary, unexamined experience of life during the awakening state. So we examine the experience of our awakening state, those 15 hours or so, and then we see the logic presented by the scriptures. So now, without the scriptures, we would never figure it out. We would never come to understand, oh my God, look at this. Look at this. This happiness that I'm seeking and searching all over the world is not contained on any experience, any objective experience. It's so obvious, so simple, yet difficult to really retain this knowledge because the vasana is so profound, so deep. But simple things like that, the most basic teaching of Vedanta, the joy and happiness is not an object. We would never thought it if it was not for the scriptures, okay? Because it's so natural to project it on the experience, Oh yes, it's this experience is giving me the happiness. Therefore, I depend, I must have, and so on, or I must avoid. So we have this merit, this karmic merit to come in contact with this revealed knowledge coming from consciousness, from Ishvara, so that we can follow the logic of the scriptures, which are entirely based on our not properly examined experience of life. And Vedanta declares that there is nothing to be gained, nothing to be done. There is nowhere to dive in to find yourself, to find the self. There is nothing you can do, nowhere to go, within or without, because people, they go all over the world in pilgrimage and so on, trying to find God as well. No? Excuse me just for a moment. So no, we don't find God. It reminds me of Papaji. He used to go all over India looking for God. So you don't find God going anywhere. You find God by following the logic of the scriptures with the help of a teacher and having developed the qualifications, the required qualifications, of course. Why? Because there is no place you can go that you're going to find, there is no action you can do to produce that which is always ever present with you, which is your conscious existence. Your conscious existence is that. It's a kind of self-knowledge, we say in Tattva Bodha, is a different kind of accomplishment. Is the accomplishment of that which is already accomplished. Is the gain of that which was already gained, but I was under the impression that I had to gain. So there is nothing that I really need to gain or get or accomplish. We are already the self. We are already pure consciousness. And we are of the nature of Purna, Ananta. We are limitless because there is only the self, there is only consciousness. It's non-dual. It's full, whole, and complete. Nothing other than consciousness. Every name and forms, every object in the universe breaks down when we really look into it, breaks down to consciousness, the knower, the seer, this light that reveals everything in this apparent order of reality. So the more we follow this, we follow the logic of these teachings, the more clear we understand that this is all consciousness and I am that. Vamos see. I am that consciousness, therefore I don't need to be concerned. I thought I was the vehicle, the medium called the body-mind medium. The body-mind medium being bound by time, it becomes a problem, this sense of identification, identity. And this scripture, this text, Vivekachudamani, is an attempt to help us to understand this very simple statement, one of the most famous statements of the Upanishads. Tatvamasi, you are that. You, the Jiva, is the same as Brahman. There is no difference. This is a non-dual reality. There is only one conscious existence. And it shines through this medium called the body-mind construct of the Jiva, the human Jiva. So therefore, wow, I know I exist. I know I'm conscious. And I am that. I am that which I am looking all over the place. Okay. Vedanta's job is to strip away our identification with the not self that keeps obscuring our clear vision. Our clear vision is obscured by these wrong notions, okay, this confusion between the self and not self. The not self here means the apparent self, because the self appears here as the jiva, these living creatures with the ability to know and know that it knows, experience, and knows that it experiences, exists and it knows that it exists, and so on. So this is the apparent self that is often quoted as the not self. Vedanta's job is to strip away our identification with the not self, this medium of knowledge experience. This identification that keeps us obscuring, that keeps obscuring our clear vision. What kind of vision is that? It's not our vision of the self. It's our clear vision as the self, because the self is the only seer. So when we see the self, we don't see the self as something other than or something dual. We see the vision, which is the aim of Vedanta, is to help us to develop this non-dual vision, this non-dual understanding of the nature of reality in which everything is the self. So it is a vision, but it's the vision as the self. It has to remove this ignorance, remove these notions that compels us to believe that we are the medium of experience, and we depend on so many things to preserve our existence. Our existence is the very fabric, the very substratum of the universe. And we are considering like, oh my God, no, I need to preserve my existence. Just imagine if space would begin dripping and it would begin say like, oh my God, is this, I'm getting crowded. There are all kinds of creatures and bodies and objects, all over the place here. And I start feeling like that I'm being attacked and very soon I'm going to run out of space. No, space never runs out of space because space pervades every object, everything, accommodates everything without any concern. No. So likewise, we should never be concerned because we are that substratum. We are that all-pervasive principle, for lack of better word, principle, conscious, subject, conscious principle, existence principle. It's like cleaning a thick film off the mirror so you can see your own face. It's a very nice analogy. It's like this process of the removal of ignorance. It's like clearing the mirror. The mirror is a nice metaphor for our subtle body. Subtle body is our mind body, our subtle body. It reflects consciousness and produces this phenomenon called the jiva. So this mind, if it is too dense, it's too dirt or with inclusions of rajas and tamas, so let's say, it's like a thick layer of dirtiness or dust or grease. And this needs to be cleaned of this mirror-like apparatus, the subtle body. It needs to be cleaned so that we can reflect consciousness and we can see consciousness in my mind. Oh yes, consciousness, all there is consciousness shine, and it shines here and shines everywhere and shines here and allows me to illumine and see the universe, which is nothing but consciousness shining all over the place. Okay? So it's like cleaning the thick film of the mirror so that we can see our face. It's not a sort of our face comes into existence through the clarity of the reflection. Our face was already there, but the mirror was not reflecting it. The mirror was there, our face was potentially there, but I couldn't get this reflection because my mirror was just, contaminated by too much rajas and tamas. So your face was always there. It's important to bear this in mind during self-inquiry, that I am consciousness. I am always ever present. If I'm trying to find myself, I need to change that notion and replace this notion that I'm seeking or searching or trying to find myself by the word I'm trying to understand my true nature. I want to understand myself. I want to understand my true nature, and I want to understand it clearly. I want it to be a doubt-free understanding, doubtless understanding. It's important to bear this in mind during our self-inquiry, or else we might conceive of the process as culminating in some definitive and extraordinary experience. But this is more or less the same lines of what I was saying before. We need to keep it in mind. I am already the self. I just need to understand it more clearly. I need to clean up a little bit my mind, to clear my mind, to refine my mind so that I can see this simple truth as presented, as stated by the Upanishads. So we need to keep it in mind. It's nothing that I'm going to gain that I had not yet had, Otherwise, we're going to keep projecting that something is going to happen here because I'm still not finding or getting what I want. No, you don't want to find or get anything here. You just understand what you already have, what you already got, what is already ever accomplished in the present. It's just a question of understanding. And longing for such experience, extraordinary experience, longing for such experience leads us towards action. As long as there is this notion that, yes, but Vedanta is too much theory, but I need somehow to have a direct experience of the self, in the sense I need to face the self. I need to face God. and say, okay, now I can introduce myself. I am the Jiva, you are God, so I have been looking for you. So we have these ideas that we're going to have an experience of the self as an object of knowledge. As long and longing for such experience, looking, searching, hoping to find the self as an object of knowledge experience, leads us toward action, and action leads us toward experience. And experience, action-oriented to experience leads us away from self-inquiry and self-knowledge. It leads us towards yoga and away from jnana. Jnana is knowledge, understanding. So we need to bear in mind this fact. We are not going to produce anything. We are not going to try to gain anything. We are not going to try to accomplish anything. We are not trying to merge back to God or anything. We are God in the true sense of, the higher sense of the world, of this word. No one undertakes self-inquiry unless he or she is unhappy. We never want freedom, moksha, from happiness. We never really want freedom from moksha or happiness. We don't want freedom from happiness. We want freedom from unhappiness. So I think we all agree with that, huh? So if we have a very happy life, chances are that we moksha, freedom, enlightenment, and self-knowledge. I'm enjoying. There is so much going for me. Of course, there are some exceptions. Buddha was a huge exception. He had everything going for him, best possible life with all kinds of pleasures and beautiful food, beautiful women and family and castle. He was going to be the king and so on. But then only due to that small, no, it was a big, huge, but it was very suppressed. His father was suppressing that spiritual vasana in him. His father was afraid of that. Somebody told his father when he was young, your child is going to be a sage, swami, a sannyasi, and so on. And he wanted him to be the king. So he suppressed this vasana, but it was enough. One time, Buddha got a little bit curious and had a peek over the walls of the palace, and then he saw certain things. And then he escaped the palace with the help of someone there, and he looked around, and then he starts saying, "Ooh, what is this? Oh, my Lord, this is old age. You have never seen before an old person, because there your father keeps only young people around you. So that the idea of old age never comes into your mind. But this is what it is. This is the reality." And then he looks, "Wow, is it going to happen to me as well?" I say, "Yes, my Lord. Yes, your Majesty, it's going to happen to you as well." And then he sees dead bodies going to cremation and say, "What is that? Why that guy sleeping so deeply like that?" And people are dancing and so on. He said, "No, he's not sleeping. He's dead." I said, "Dead? What is that?" "Yes. Oh, it's something that happens after old age and sickness and so on." And I said, "So is it going to happen to me as well? I can't believe it. Nobody told me." He said, "Yes." So he went back, and we all know the story. He packed up and he left everything, because he knew, because at a certain point he saw some swamis, some sannyasis, some sages in deep meditation. And asking, "What are those guys there in yellow? What are they doing?" "Oh, those are sannyasis. They're sage. They're people. They are looking for that which is eternal. They are looking for the immortal. They are looking to that which is beyond time." He said, "Oh, That is something interesting. You know? I don't want to die. I want to find that which is eternal. And in spite of all comfort, luxury, and pleasures that life was offering him, he said, no, I'm out of here. But in January, we only look for freedom when we are suffering. So self-inquiry necessarily involving start from where we find ourselves as unhappy individuals. So why are we unhappy? That's the bottom line. The most fundamental question, why I am unhappy? We have so many good reasons to say, oh, I am unhappy because of this, because of that. I did not find my soulmate. I did not have a good mom, good dad, and I did not have a good job, good education, and whatever. Or I don't like the president of the United States, and so on. We have many reasons to be unhappy. But we are unhappy because none of the things that we try to accomplish in the world, in the hope that they would deliver me happiness and freedom from unhappiness, nothing has ever worked. So we are unhappy because we have tried everything and nothing has worked. That's why we came to the spiritual world of Vedanta. We have tried everything. We have tried everything that life can provide us in terms of materialism. And then we went into the world of spiritual materialism as well. We got in all kinds of objects of experience on the spiritual and also in the world of different knowledge, different kinds of fields of knowledge. Because we go for knowledge as well as a means to complete ourselves. It's also an object of knowledge. So none of that, nothing has worked for me. Therefore, I turned my life to Vedanta. Finally enough, this is the very definition of maturity. Is once we understand that nothing will ever resolve this fundamental problem, which is not personal, is universal. Everybody with maturity comes to this fundamental problem. Self-inquiry will not succeed if we try forcibly to make ourselves believe that we are pure awareness. This is a good one. Self-inquiry is not going to fructify as freedom or self-knowledge and freedom if we try to force ourselves to believe that I am pure, limitless, unconcerned, independent, free consciousness. If I try to just program myself forcibly, try to repeat it as a mantra, or try to just, to hypnotize myself so that I believe that in the time of Osho, there were some people, we used to call them the Hollywood gang, the people from Hollywood, and Vidya probably know a lot about this. The people from Hollywood in the very last year or two in Pune too, when Osho was about to leave his body to that, they came up with a program that was based on hypnosis. So they used to do these sessions and then sell CDs and so on. It was all about that. You are consciousness, you are limitless, you are free, you are this, you are enlightened, you are, And I remember I purchased these CDs on those days and I was playing it for as long as I could in the night and whenever I had free time. No, none of that's going to help. We cannot forcibly believe that we are limitless consciousness, free, limitless consciousness. Where am I? because unless all the momentum of our karma, all this ignorance which is stored in our causal body, which again and again appears in the conscious mind as this ignorance-based vasanas or thoughts, feelings, emotions, all of that has to be processed. This is the work of all the time processing karma. Karma, we have to deal with our life circumstance, whatsoever is coming from within our mind as a work as well, work of a karma yoga. I'm dealing with all this thing, and I need to process this karma. The karma I get from my external environment, but I get a lot of things coming from my causal body. So I need to process all of that. So it needs to be processed. So it's not enough to just try to hypnotize myself. If I have a lot of those vasanas, again and again, pressing my belief that I am free. People get a little bit confused. I know people in Brazil that they open. I'm clear. I am consciousness. But why I can't enjoy this? Why it's not working for me? It's so clear. I know it completely. But it's not working. It's not working because there is still a lot of ignorance in the system, and it needs to be processed. It needs to come out. So, and how are we going to do that? We have to keep applying this knowledge every time this ignorance starts coming to my mind, preferably before I start externalize it with words and actions, because the moment that I start speaking out my ignorance and acting out it, and then I get into a lot of karmic conflicts that are more complicated to resolve later on. So we need to keep doing this work, the inner work, the work in relationship to our outer environment, and processing this karma from within and from without. Therefore, self-inquiry will not succeed if we try forcibly to make ourselves believe that we are pure, limitless consciousness when all our past, our habits, our ignorance, all our thoughts and actions incline us to believe the opposite, that we are an individual body mind. So this is a huge, this ignorance is so huge, it has been with us for so many births. We say it's beginningless because the whole universe is projected out of this fundamental ignorance of the true nature of reality. So we carry it, from if we look from the angle of genetics, we carry it from generation to generation, from the time that we were in the caves, that I am this body mind here and I have to protect, life is dangerous. So all these notions, they are with us forever, in our unconscious mind. We can even look into say that they are cellular memories even, ignorance is really tough. So we need to do this work with persistence, knowing that that moksha is not something that happens overnight. It requires a lot of effort. We must be patient, though. We must keep at it, listening to the words of Vedanta, reflecting, processing, digesting, and assimilating, and most importantly, applying them again and again in an analysis of our life situation. We need to, again and again, patiently, persistently, consistently, systematically, we need to keep at it, listening, and then contemplating, applying, resolving doubts, assimilating the knowledge, digesting it, processing it, integrating it into my life. And we need a teacher. Ooh, a teacher. A teacher, no. Teacher is not good news. And we need a teacher. Oh, but the first verse of Vivekachudamani, it says, we salute the teacher, which is the limitless self. Ishvara, the limitless self, is the real teacher. Yes, these teachings, they don't belong to anyone. These teachings, they are revealed direct from consciousness, from the self. But somehow, the self needs the Ishvara, and the Ishvara needs some jivas as agents, local agents, to help other jivas to understand more clearly these teachings so that people can do their own work of removal of their own ignorance. And we need a teacher. We tend to rebel at the notion that we need a teacher, we need help. In any endeavor, we don't like the idea that we are helpless, that we need help. Oh no, that makes me feel small. Oh, I am helpless, I need help. No, it's very common, especially in the West. It's partly due to a value given on self-reliance, and partly due to the vanity of the ego. The ego is very vain. The more infantile the ego, the more vanity the ego has, and the more he says, no, I can do it myself. I don't need any help. I don't need even the scriptures. No, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to create my own scriptures. I have my own teaching, especially designed for the modern man and woman. There is that within us that declares with some defiancy, I can do it on my own. I can do anything on my own. But we can't. Remember that our usual means of knowledge, which is perception and inference, can only teach us about objects. The self is not an object, but it's the knower of all subjects. The self is the ultimate, the absolute subject, which cannot be objectified by the mind. It cannot be known and experienced. And the only means to know the self, the only means of knowledge for the self is Vedanta or the Upanishads. The Vedic culture is there all this living knowledge revealed by Ishvara, with the aim of preparing the mind, and then with its final declarations revealed to the individual its true, free, limitless nature. If we approach Vedanta on our own without the help of someone who is free and who knows how to unfold this great sense, we will interpret the words according to our own knowledge. And our knowledge is usually confused knowledge, vague knowledge, incorrect knowledge, mistaken knowledge. Our knowledge is a mix of knowledge and ignorance at the best. So if our knowledge is not really clear and absolutely free from any vagueness or any kind of imprecision or imprecise knowledge or vague knowledge or approximate knowledge, we know that. We just say, no, I don't understand. I don't accept this. When we say I don't accept these aspects of the teaching of Vedanta, we are pushing something that needs to be resolved in the light of the teachings under the carpet. And that is going to create doubt. That's going to create uncertainty, That's going to create lack of shraddha and trust in these statements. So it's going to undermine our confidence in this knowledge because I'm pushing things here and there. So our knowledge is it's not complete. Usually it's vague, it's confusing, and so on.
Arlindo,
Yep.
I have a question. So if you go to a teacher and you have that trust in the teachings and you saturate yourself with the knowledge, I've also heard that you need the kind of mind that will go and do it by yourself, that you can't, that it's not going to come to you from outside, that you really have to do it. You have to spend that time alone, and that you have to,
Of course.
work. So how do you know, do you just always stay with the teacher while you build up that independence of thinking?
Well, the teacher is basically there to help the student to understand the true meaning and to resolve all these apparent contradictions, because the teachings, they cover different orders of reality, and they present the teaching from different angles and contexts. And so it appears to be contradictory all over, you know. So the teacher is there for that purpose, so that the student can understand the knowledge more clearly. But Vedanta is very clear that the student is the one who has to do the work. You know? The student is the one who has to do the work. The student, the teacher presents the teachings, and the teachers is that which makes himself available for clearing doubts and so on. And some people take advantage of that. You know, when I was in my encounter with Vedanta and Ramji, I was very often I was writing back and forth to Ramji. I was excited, and I have so many questions, and I had things that I need to clear still. So that is the main purpose of the teacher. And then after some time, one does not really need the teacher. Although it's recommended that one remains still in connection with the teacher, just in case, because the teacher usually is a little bit wiser. The teacher has gone through those stages of development of the student, and then the teacher can prevent the student from stumble here and there, and you know, I mean, these teachings, it gradually it's going to cancel the sense of ownership and doership of the ego. The ego has a tendency to want to own this knowledge and this wisdom and so on. And the teacher can be helpful as well, because the teachers, they know those stages. It takes some time until this knowledge cancels the sense of doership, ownership, authorship. The ego has to be neutralized, you know. So for different reasons, it suggests that we remain in contact with the Sampradaya. But you are right. It's the student is the one who has to do the work. The scriptures are very important. The teachings are very important, even more than the teacher, because the teacher cannot be always in contact with the student, but the student can have the contact with the teachings all the time. You understand? And then
so developing this quality of mind at the same time that you're always attending to the teachings and the teacher. So that independence, it sort of has to rise up at the same time as your knowledge.
That responsibility is more than, I mean, rather than independence, I would put it as responsibility. You know, you need to really take one's life in one's hand and say, I'm responsible for my happiness, for the removal of my ignorance, and I know I have to do. And I have a friend who is available to help me. Yay! And I accept a friend who can help. Oh, yeah, you know. So that's all there is to it. But it's we need to do the work ourselves. Okay, just to close this one, we have a few more minutes here. As we said, our knowledge is usually not clear. It's erroneous notions and ideas that we picked up. So we need to we need to we need to approach Vedanta with the help of someone who is going to correct the way we see these statements, correct our understanding in regards to my true nature. We need to help someone who can understand us to think like that, like the scripture, to develop the vision of Ishwara's, visions of the self-knowledge vision. What this means in practice is that we are likely to try to make the self an object of to be understood. Self-knowledge is not something the ego can objectify and add to its resume. Only by opening ourselves to the knowledge that the teacher can awaken in us is most important. And the teacher has a huge play in encouraging and inspire people to really do this work, because the teacher should be an example that this knowledge, this work pays dividends. It produces moksha and freedom, Howsoever we want to look into this notion of moksha. Only by opening ourselves to the knowledge, the teacher can awaken in us. Will we realize the self? This teacher is described as a notion of compassion. So you see, there are exceptions for the rules. Those are general rules. There are people that they are born already enlightenment. The knowledge was already there in previous life, but somehow he came back here. The self-knowledge is already in one's subconscious mind, in one's causal body, and then any small little thing that happens in one's childhood or later age, and one immediately gets it, like Ramana. So there are exceptions for the rules, but it does not mean that the enlightenment of Ramana fell from the tree accidentally. It was like it is a meritorious system, cause and effect system. Consider the teacher is free and he knows. So now only by opening yourself, this teacher is described as a notion of compassion, and such he must be to undertake this work. Why? Because to teach Vedanta in its purity is a labor of love, in its purity, uncompromising purity. Okay? Because people do not like Vedanta. People in the spiritual world do not feel any attraction towards Vedanta. So to present the teachings in its purity is a labor of love, of course, provided the teacher is pure and honest in its motives. Consider the teacher is free and he knows that everybody is free. Freedom is the very nature of everything and everyone. Yet we come to a teacher and say, please free me. Like we used to come to Papaji. Right? With Vedanta, we cannot do that. But in the times of Papaji, we used to go there and we used to say, Papaji, please free me. I want to be free. Free me, Papaji. So the teacher is free and he knows that everyone and everybody is free. Freedom is the very nature. Yet we come to a teacher and say, please give me freedom. The situation is rather comical. The famous illustration of it in the Vedanta is that of the snake and the rope. So we know about the snake and the rope. So we have the twilight. Twilight is a beautiful symbol of a mix of darkness and light, because whenever there is total darkness, total ignorance, we are in bliss, like in deep sleep. Now, when we are in deep sleep, there is total ignorance, total darkness. There's nothing happening. There is no reflection appearing, no objects appearing in my mind, and I am in bliss. And total knowledge is blissful as well, when you're really clear about the knowledge. But the mix, the blend, the cocktail between knowledge and ignorance, represented by the twilight, late in the afternoon. It's not really dark, but it's not really daylight. So there is a traveler, and then he sees the coil of a snake, the snake in coil like that, next to the well where he was going to get a little bit of water. He was thirst. And then he was paralyzed in fear. And then comes this other person who was a guru. And then the guy said, oh, please, help me, free me from the danger of this snake. And the guru is saying there is no snake. He said, there is a snake, it's over there. The guru said, no, you are tripping, you are projecting a snake here. There is no snake. So just imagine the situation. The man knows that the snake is a projection, and he could just as easily leave the person there. He says, oh, I'm going to go away because anyhow, it's a projection. That snake is never going to bite him. There is nothing to be concerned. No? We can think like that. If we would be indifferent to the human suffering, we would look from that angle and say, oh, and some people have that inclination. Some yonis have the inclination, oh, there is nobody suffering. There's nothing really going on. There is only the self. These people are only apparently suffering. So therefore, sooner or later, they are going to get it. Let them live their karma. Okay? But the compassionate teacher, knowing that there is no harm, nobody is going to ever be harmed. The snake is never going to bite the guy. But yet he says, no, I feel compassion for this person. The person is suffering unnecessarily. I'm going to try to help the person to understand that this is just a rope. It's not a snake. So that's to illustrate the compassion of the teacher. And so he instructs him, knowing that whether he does so or not, there is no snake. I mean, it doesn't matter if I instruct him about the nature of this snake as a rope or not. The traveler is in no danger, but yet I feel inclined to try to help. When we come to a competent teacher, we are much like a traveler. We are saying, in effect, save me from the snake. The teacher knows there is no snake, but he takes the time to lead us. The teacher takes the time to lead us to this knowledge because of his compassion and because Ishvara has appointed this meeting. Ishvara has appointed this meeting between the student and the teacher. It's the self instructing the self in the nature of the self. No. So does anybody has anything to say? Any questions? Or Claudio, did you send me a text message over the weekend? Was it you?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. No. I got somebody who sent me a message, a text message, and it was an Italian number. And I thought it was you, but it was somebody else presenting a kind of a question. Okay.
I will soon, but not yet.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Shanti.
Okay, so we remain scheduled then for the next week, right? Which is the date? We said 23rd.
23rd.
3rd, yeah. And I hope you're gonna do better, Vidya.
Thank you, me too.
Okay, much love to all.
Yeah, thank you, Alinda.
Thank you.
We meet again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Arlinda.
Thanks, Arlinda. Arlindo.